In this video, we are going to create the animation and go over the required script so that the player can swing the custom axe tool we created in the last video. If you're interested in how we created the tool, you can watch part 1. The link to part 1 is in the description. Or continue watching to learn how to create the animation. Alright, since now we have our tool created, and we've created that and put it in our starter pack, we now have the ability to equip it, but we can equip it, but it doesn't really do anything. We just hold it in our arm here, and clicking a mouse button, that doesn't do anything. It doesn't chop or do nothing. So we need to add an animation and add a script to make this tool do something and make it have an animation when we click that button so it looks like it has that chopping motion. So to do that, the first thing we want to do, let's go to the avatar ribbon here, tab, and click on Rig Builder. We want to add an R15 rig and a block avatar. So have R15 selected and click on block avatar. All right, so that adds in this little blank avatar here. All right, so now we want to go back to the Explorer and go to the starter pack and find our tool axe that we have and just right click on that and go cut. Then find the rig we just added, click on that and go right click and go paste into. So that will give our rig our axe. So it now has an axe in the rig's hand. Okay, so now we want to go back to the avatar tab and click on animation editor. Bring up our animation editor. And then with that open, we want to now click back on our rig. So now we're going to start building our animation to do that chopping action. So when a tool is equipped, default animation runs and kind of puts that arm into kind of a raised position. So we want our animation to start in that raised position. So the first thing we're going to do is go on the left-hand side here, and you have this little plus here. So we're going to click on that, and we're going to add in 2 tracks. We're going to add a track for our upper arm and lower arm. So find the right lower arm, click on that. That adds in the track for the right lower arm, and then click a plus again, and add in the right upper arm. Let's bring the scrubber. That's this little blue line. We want that to be right at the beginning of our animation timeline. So bring that to 0. And we're going to put our arm in the kind of default equipped position. So to do that, let's click on the upper arm. And we're going to rotate that. So with that selected, go to have rotate, make sure rotate selected. And then we're going to hold on the X here and just rotate this a little bit. We're going to rotate this about 45 degrees. That looks pretty good there. And now we're going to click on the right lower arm, click on its track. We're going to do the same thing for that. So we want that to rotate also. So rotate that about 45 degrees. There you go. So that's kind of like the default position for when you have a tool equipped. So you'll see that once I rotated on each of these tracks, we have these little diamonds show up. So those are keyframes. So that's basically a keyframe. So what we're going to do is we have this keyframe that's kind of locking that position at that point in time on the animation editor. And then say, let's move this scrubber up here. Let's move this up to like 0.2 seconds on the timeline. We're going to add in another keyframe here. So we'll add in a keyframe to the right upper arm. Right click here, go add keyframe here. And then we're going to want to rotate that down. So make sure that's selected. And now we're going to rotate that back. So it's now down into straight down position. And now go to the right lower arm track and add a keyframe at the same 0.2 seconds. And we want to do the same thing there. We want to rotate that down. All right, perfect. So now since we have a keyframe at 0 and a keyframes at 0.2 seconds each of these tracks, it's going to automatically fill in the positions throughout this timeline between those 2 keyframes. So if you now go back here to position 0 and move it slowly along the timeline, you'll see the arm slowly moves and bends into the position as it gets towards that keyframe. And now we get back to the 22 seconds. It's at what we have it set at the 0.2 seconds. All right, so say after they finish chopping down, they want to say hold that position for say another 0.2 seconds. So before they raise their arm up, so we can go to move the scrubber ahead to 0.4 seconds. We're going to add a keyframe here. And we'll add a keyframe to the lower arm one as well. All right, so now we'll see if we play along here. Just you click the play button here, so you can click the play button. You'll watch it play the animation. So it'll play here. Goes pretty fast though, so it's kind of hard to see what happens. So let's just drag it across, and you can see a little easier to see when you drag it across. All right, so we're gonna go through, start at 0, drag it across, and you'll see it's chopping. Hits 0.2 seconds, it's done. We added a new keyframe at 0.4, but we did not change the position. So if it keeps going through to 0.4, it doesn't change for 0.2 seconds. It stays in the same position. And now after that, they did their chopping, they're holding their axe down, and they're going to want to raise it back up to their original position. So what you want to do is going to go back to 0. So with our scrubbers at 0, we want to select both of the keyframes. So click on the keyframe, hold down Shift, and click on the other one and make sure it's selected. So you'll see they're both selected because they're both kind of highlighted in blue here. Now let's right click on that and go Copy Selected. All right, so now we're going to move the scrubber up to 0.8 seconds. We're going to right click here. We're going to go Paste Keyframes. All right, so that pasted the keyframes at a very start position. So it's going to, once it gets back to 0.8 seconds, it's going to be at the very position it was at the beginning of the animation. So now let's go through and we'll play that. So go back at 0 on the timeline. And let's just go through and drag this across. Make sure you got the scrubber selected there. So dragging it across here, it's doing the chopping action. It's down at the bottom. There's no movement. And now we hit 0.4, and we go all the way to 0.8, and now it's raising back up to the original position. All right, so that completes our animation for our chopping action. So what we got to do is a couple little extra things here before we can use this animation. So we're going to go over here. I'm just going to type in what we want to name this animation. So I'm just going to call it Axe Chop. All right, so after you've entered in a name for the animation here, click on the 3 dots, and you want to make sure the animation priority is set to action. So go in there and click on action. So this makes it a little higher level priority, so it's higher than these other ones. We leave it at core, then that's not going to work correctly. We want it to set to action priority. So the next thing we need to do is, under those 3 dots also, we're going to go and now publish to Roblox. So click on that. So a little asset configuration window is going to open. We have the title we set, Axe Chop. You can put a description if you want. And then we're just going to go down and click on Save. All right, so now that's been saved, but the next thing is really important. So we have this animation ID, and right next to that you have this little icon so you can copy that. We're going to need this animation ID for the script that's going to make that animation play. So make sure you copy that animation and save that ID. So the ID is copied to your clipboard. You can go paste that into Notepad, and then we can use that for later. So make sure you have that ID available. All right, we can close out this animation editor now. We don't need that anymore. And we're done with this rig. So what we're going to do is we're going to put our axe back in the starter pack. So go to the Explorer and find the rig, and find the tool that we put into the rig. Select that, right-click, click on Cut, scroll down to the starter pack, click on that, right-click, go paste into, so that puts our tool back inside there. We don't need this rig anymore, so you can click on that, and you can delete that rig by right-clicking or hitting delete. So let's right-click on here, click on delete, removes that. Okay, so go back to the tool in the Explorer under Starter Pack, and click on the little plus. We want to add in a script here. So we're going to add a local script. I have this script prepared for us already, so I'm just going to paste it in here. All right, so now we have this script. I just need to make a little change here. So under line 12, remember we had that ID from the animation, so we need to put that in the script. So find the ID that you saved, and go to line 12, and we're going to put that there. So replace ID with the actual ID. Okay, so let's just go through these lines of the script just to explain what's happening here. So we'll start off with line 1. So line 1, this gives a reference to the axe tool. So script.parent. So the script is parented. The parent of the script is the tool itself. So this gives us the tool. And line 2, we're just getting a reference to the player services. And then line 3 is just getting the local player. And line 4 is just getting the mouse for the local player. All right, let's go down to line 7. So we need the character of the player. So that's basically the model of the player. So sometimes a character isn't available right away. It could be a null object. So we have this or player.character added waiting. So we're just making sure that that character model is available before we set a reference to it. And then same thing with the humanoid. So the humanoid is part of the character. It's like for the animations, health, things like that. So we're getting reference to that humanoid, but we're also doing wait for child to make sure that that was loaded and available before we get the reference to it. All right, down to line 11. This work, we're creating the instant of the new animation. So this is a swing animation, new instance of the animation. And we're setting the property animation ID to the ID of the animation that we just recently created. Go down to line 15. This is a is swinging Boolean value here. So we have it set to false. So we're going to use this value, this is swing, to determine if the swing animation is currently playing. So if it is playing, we don't want to play it, trying to start playing it again. We want to wait for animation to complete before we try to play that animation again. So we use this is swinging to do that. So down to line 18, so we're just creating a function here called play swing. So we just have if not is swing. So if not is just checking to see if is swinging is false. So if swing is not true, which is false, we're going to set swing to true so that we can't run through this again until it's false. Then we're going to create this local swing track, and we load the animation that we set up above here on line 11. So we have load animation with the instance of the animation, swing animation here. Then once we have that, we go swing track, and we can play the animation on line 22. And then line 23, we're just going to wait for that animation to complete playing. So stopped wait. So it's going to wait for that animation to stop playing. And then when it does finish, we can then go set is swinging back to false again because it's no longer playing the animation. All right, down to line 30. So we have this reference to that mouse that we created earlier for the mouse for the player. So we're going to see, so on the mouse, we have an event for when the button one down is clicked. So when the left button is clicked, we have this button one down event fires. And then we have this function here that we connect this function that will be called. And this function is very simple. We're just checking to see if the axe.parent is a character. So we know that that axe has been equipped. And if it is equipped, then we can play the animation for the swing of the axe. So then we just call the function play swinging on line 32 there. So pretty simple. So let's see if this all works. We're going to click on play here to run the game. All right. Let's click on 1 to equip our axe. The axe is equipped. Click the mouse button. And there you go. It plays the animation. We now got a chopping action. Nice. All right, so that's all we're going to cover in this video here. It's kind of basic. We just created a tool, basic tool, and we created a basic animation for the chopping action. There's a lot more you can do with tools. Say, for example, you want to cause damage when you hit something. There's a lot of extra scripting you'd have to do for that. But we can maybe get into that into another video. This will kind of get you going on how to create tools and kind of doing some animations for those motions with those tools. Maybe you can play around with that and try out creating some animations, some different tools. Yeah, have some fun with that. All right, that's about does it for this video. So we went over creating a very basic tool, just creating an axe, showing you how you have to have the handle there, adding the tool object, adding that to your starter pack so you can equip it easily when you start the game up, giving the player right away. Then we have the basic animation there, just give that chopping action for the axe. So hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.